Today is Tuesday, July 14th. Welcome to Big Book Daily. My name is Rob. I am an alcoholic. It is a thrill, honor, and joy to be here with you today as we journey through the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous and the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions. Today out of the Big Book, we're on Bill's story, page 4. Out of the 12 and 12, we're on Step 2. We'll be reading page 26. And of course, we'll read the NA Just for Today and Al-Anon's Courage to Change. So with that, hope y'all are doing well this morning, my friends. Life is good over here. It's hard to believe that we're halfway through with July already. It's crazy to think about, it goes so fast sometimes. But nice thing is, all I have to worry about is this set of 24 hours. And as I'm recording this, it's 5 o'clock, so I got 19 hours to go to work this program to the best of my ability. Clean slate. Feels good. So with that, let's go ahead and get to the good stuff. All right, my friends, so if you recall from the last few days of reading, it's definitely been a mixed bag so far as it goes with Bill's story. He talks about at times how drinking's been a problem, then he's talked about some good times. But we're seeing on page 3 that his drinking is becoming more progressive. He's drinking just about every day already. And this is before the stock market crash. So we're going to get to that part today. Page 4. Abruptly in October 1929, hell broke loose on the New York Stock Exchange. After one of those days of inferno, I wobbled from a hotel bar to a brokerage office. It was 8 o'clock, 5 hours after the market closed. The ticker still clattered. I was staring at an inch of tape which bore the inscription XYZ minus 32. It had been 52 that morning. I was finished, and so were many friends. The papers reported men jumping to death from towers of high finance. That disgusted me. I would not jump. I went back to the bar. My friends had dropped several million since 10 o'clock. So what? Tomorrow was another day. And as I drank, the old fierce determination to win came back. Next morning, I telephoned a friend in Montreal. He had plenty of money left and thought that I had better go to Canada. By the following spring, we were living in our accustomed style. I felt like Napoleon returning from Elba. No St. Helena for me. But drinking caught up with me again, and my generous friend had to let me go. This time we stayed broke. We went to live with my wife's parents. I found a job, then lost it as a result of a brawl with a taxi driver. Mercifully, no one could guess that I was to have no real employment for 5 years or hardly draw a sober breath. My wife began to work in a department store, coming home exhausted to find me drunk. I became an unwelcome hanger-on at brokers' places. Out of the 12 and 12, we're on Step 2. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. And yesterday, we set this whole chapter up by talking about, well, now that we admitted we were powerless, what about those who, says here, won't believe? Others who can't, and still others who do believe that God exists, but have no faith whatever that he will perform his miracle. So yesterday we talked about a little bit the one who chooses not to believe, who won't believe. And it says, must he renounce all of this to save himself? So we're going to answer that question on page 26. At this juncture, his AA sponsor usually laughs. This, the newcomer thinks, is just about the last straw. This is the beginning of the end. And so it is. The beginning of the end of his old life. And the beginning of his emergence into a new one. His sponsor probably says, take it easy. The hoop you have to jump through is a lot wider than you think. At least I've found it so. So did a friend of mine who was a one-time vice president of the American Atheist Society. But he got through with room to spare. Well, says a newcomer, I know you're telling me the truth. It's no doubt a fact that AA is full of people who once believed as I do. But just how In these circumstances, does a fellow take it easy? That's what I want to know. That, agrees the sponsor, is a very good question indeed. I think I can tell you exactly how to relax. You won't have to work very hard at it either. Listen, if you will, to these 3 statements. First, Alcoholics Anonymous does not demand that you believe in anything. All of its 12 steps are but suggestions. Second, to get sober and stay sober, you don't have to swallow all of step 2 right now. Looking back, I find that I took it piecemeal myself. Third, all you really need is a truly open mind. Just resign from the debating society and quit bothering yourself with such deep questions as whether it was the hen or the egg that came first. Again, I say, all you need is an open mind. The sponsor continues. Take, for example, my own case. I had a scientific schooling. Naturally, I respected, venerated, and even worshipped science. As a matter of fact, I still do. All except the worship part. Time after time, my instructors held up to me the basic principles of all scientific progress. Search and research again and again, always with an open mind. When I first looked at AA, my reaction was just like yours. This AA business, I thought, is totally unscientific. This I can't swallow. I simply won't consider such nonsense. NA just for today, July 14th. An inside job. Social acceptability does not equal recovery. Basic text, page 22. One of the first things that happens to many of us in recovery is that we start to look better. We get healthier, we bathe, we dress more appropriately. And without the goading of active addiction, many of us finally stop stealing, lying, and hustling. We start to look normal just by removing the drugs. Looking normal is very different from being normal. Acceptability in the eyes of the world is a benefit of recovery. It is not the same thing as recovery. We can enjoy the benefits of recovery, but we must take care to nurture their true source. Lasting recovery isn't found in acceptance from others, but in the inner growth set in motion by the 12 steps. Just for today, I know that looking good isn't enough. Lasting recovery is an inside job. Courage to Change, July 14th. I didn't know how great a burden my guilt was until I made amends and gained release from it. I never wanted to face the harm that I had done in the past. Consequently, without knowing it, I carried guilt with me most of the time. Making amends has helped me to put the past behind me and move on with a clear conscience. My self-esteem has grown ever since, and I feel much better about myself. But I had a problem. The person I felt I owed the most amends to was no longer living. Deep in my heart, I knew that she had understood and forgiven me. But I could not forgive myself for the harm that I had done. How can I make amends? After much prayer and thought, I realized that I couldn't change the past. All I could do was change my present behavior. Now, when I feel tempted to shirk a responsibility, I can remember my friend and reconsider my choice. Each time I talk to a newcomer, chair a meeting, or share my story, I'm making amends to my friend. Today's reminder: I can't make past wrongs disappear, but I can take actions that will help me to let them go. When I make amends, I do what I can to correct the situation. Then I can put the past in its rightful place and leave it there. Let me remember the reason for making amends is to free my own mind of uneasiness. From the Dilemma of the Alcoholic Marriage. All right, my friends, that concludes today's reading. It's some great stuff. Man, in every book today, there was something that jumped out at me. First of all, in the big book, Bill's pride. They always say, what, if you spot it, you got it. That fierce determination to win. Yeah, I've been there. And honestly, my pride was rooted in insecurity. And pride oftentimes is a precursor to the fall, right? And pride is a big one. Ego is a big one that I have to try my best to surrender to my higher power every single day. And then I love the conversation between the sponsee and the sponsor about the one who doesn't want to believe, right? And I love the answer the sponsor gives. The three things. He says, first, Alcoholics Anonymous does not demand that you believe anything. All of its 12 steps are suggestions. And it says that at the end of the big book, too. It's one of the last lines of the entire core text of the book. I think it's on 164. Second, to get sober and stay sober, you don't have to swallow it all of step 2 right now. We don't have to do all these steps perfectly right off the bat. Because I think if we try, it's just like for me writing, if I try to make it sound perfect right off the bat, I'm never going to finish. I'm never going to finish the story. Believe me, I've tried. So we just plug at it to the best of our understanding, our best of our ability. But I have to keep moving. I don't stay idle at this. And he says, looking back, I find that I took a piecemeal myself. Third, all you really need is a truly open mind. And then he says it again. Again, I say, all you need is an open mind. So for me, when I first came into the rooms, I looked around the room and I saw all these people who were sober and looked genuinely happy. And I thought to myself, wow, it's something's working for them. I'm just going to listen to what they have to say. And now, a few 24 hours later, as soon as I go to a meeting, I look around the room and I think the same thing. My goodness, here's a bunch of miracles sitting all around me. I really want to hone in on what they're saying. If I look at it that way, I'll always be teachable and always open-minded. And if somebody makes a lot of sense and they can back it up with facts, I'm willing to change my own preconceptions. Because Lord knows I don't have it all figured out. But then finally, I love the courage to change. It is beautiful. I love this line here, or this paragraph. After much prayer and thought, I realized that I couldn't change the past. See, I can't. There's some things that I wish I could change that I can't. And sometimes I think about that, like, well, wait a minute. If I did change those things, would I have ever learned the lessons that I've learned now? Probably not. All I could do was change my present behavior. Now when I feel tempted to shirk a responsibility, I can remember my friend and reconsider my choice. So what was once a blemish from the past now becomes a catalyst to try to make the right choice today. You know, I can think about some things in my past that I had to do a lot of 12-step work with. I had to talk to my sponsor about, or a trusted friend, and I can't change it. But what I can do is on July 14th, 2026, I can make sure that I put some boundaries into place to make sure it doesn't happen again. To make those indirect amends, to make sure it doesn't happen again. After I've already made the direct amends to those that I could, that were actually physically possible. And I love this last line. Each time I talk to a newcomer, chair a meeting, or share my my story, I am making amends to my friend. You know, I don't think about that, but every time I work the program, anytime I try to apply the steps to my life, I'm making indirect amends to everybody around me. It's just another incentive to do it. And by making these amends, somehow I can look in the mirror and not hate the person I see. I owe all that to my higher power and His grace and His mercy. And these 12 suggestions, right? Speaking of that, hating ourselves, a dear friend of mine, somebody I talk to just about every day, he shared in a meeting one time, he said, you know what? The nice thing is trying to rediscover balance, trying to find humility in between arrogance and self-loathing. And then he gave this illustration. He said, we are neither better nor worse than anyone else. We're simply unfinished works. And he compared us to Michelangelo painting the Sistine Chapel, saying Michelangelo wouldn't have looked halfway through and called it worthless. We're just masterpieces still being completed. I just think that's a beautiful picture. Great stuff. But my friends, that's all we have time for today. I hope you all have a good one. Please reach out if you ever want to share your experience, strength, and hope. Email is bigbookdaily@gmail.com, or you can always give us a call at 865-309-5486. And please know, as always, I don't speak on behalf of NA, AA, Al-Anon, any other sector, denomination. I am just a joyful drunk in this lifeboat of recovery, honored to be here another day. And if we're given another set of 24 hours, my friends, I sincerely look forward to seeing you right back here